Hello and welcome to this Code Academy tutorial brought to you by Tech Tutorials by Kyle. In this video we will be dealing with the JavaScript Quick Start Guide. And they are recommending that if you haven't had any background in a prior programming language, then you probably shouldn't do these. But I don't know. JavaScript is easy enough that I think you can complete these pretty easily without a prior knowledge of any programming language. But if you get stuck on anything, that's what I'm here for. So the first couple lessons are just explaining JavaScript again, how versatile it is. And then here we are introduced to the alert function. So basically all we have to do is type an alert, parenthesis, quotations, hello, world. Alright, semicolon, and then we will get a pop-up. Says our string. We'll click OK. And now it's testing our knowledge here of what we learned in the first course. This should return true if the first number is bigger than the second number, and false if the first number is smaller or equal to the second number. So if you know the different operators, you will know that greater than is the opposite of less than or equal to. So really you don't need two different if statements. All you need is an if else. So we have if first is greater than second, we return true, else return false. Alright. Here we're introduced to assigning variables again, but we already know how to do this, so just assign the value of 5, variable foo. So var5 is equal to 5. Right. Variables also behave like numbers, so it wants us to assign 5 to foo, 6 to bar, and then add the two variables together and add them inside baz. So we just treat them just like numbers. We just do a plus sign. Alright. Hello world was a string primitive, and 5 was a number primitive. The other primitive types are Boolean, null, and undefined. We're going to go more into that soon. So we'll just go on to the next lesson. Booleans. If you don't know, Boolean algebra is a branch of algebra that just basically deals with either true or false values. There's really not that much to it. And variables can be Boolean variables, in which they are stored true or false. As we see here, we set true val is equal to true, and false val is equal to false. Alright. Truth is relative. There are 6 falsy values. False, null, undefined, 0, an empty string, and NaN, which stands for not a number. All of these evaluate to false, but everything else is true. Alright, so we go next exercise. The bang operator, or the exclamation point, is used to change the truthy value to falsy, or vice versa. So if we remember that if we go exclamation point equals, that stands for not equal to. It's the same thing if you put it in front of anything else. So if we put an exclamation point in front of true, that makes it false. Alright. If a value is falsy, we want to return the string sad face. So really all you need to do is just do exclamation point value. And then we do return the string sad face, otherwise don't return anything, so we just put return semicolon. If you're wondering why we can just put exclamation point value, is that in Java and JavaScript, if we have a Boolean variable, then we don't have to say if that variable is equal to true. We can just say if that variable, and that'll mean the same thing. So it's the same with false. So instead of writing value is equal to false, we can just write exclamation point value, and it'll mean the same thing. All right, next exercise. It's basically just bringing up the importance of the triple equal sign again. So very important. We'll go on. So now we're going to write a function that checks if the variable is unset or not. So it gives us the example right here. Return true if the value is null or undefined, return false otherwise. So what we do here is we create one if statement. If value is equal to undefined, return true. Another if statement, if value is equal to null, return true. And then at the bottom of everything we have return false. And you may be wondering why we can do that. It's because you may be thinking that, oh, it's going to return false every time because it's at the bottom of these if statements. But that's actually not true, because every time we run into return, it just completely leaves the function. So if the value is undefined, then it's going to go into this if statement, and it's going to return true, and then it's just going to leave the function. Alright, next exercise. It's kind of building on the last one. Return true if the value is null or undefined, return false otherwise. For this, we would just go return value is equal to undefined, or value is equal to null, which will give us the true. Alright, start with the next one. And here we have control flow statements again. Here's a review of if-else statements. Check if a variable is unset, then this time use else-if statements. Return true if it is unset and false if it is not unset. So here we go. If value is equal to undefined, return true. Else if value is equal to null, return true. Else, and then we have our default statement, which means if everything falls through, it'll just return false. Alright, go ahead and run that. Conventional Boolean tests. For example, we can test a variable value is false by testing if value, just like I explained before. Alright, modify this function to set params to default params if params is falsy. Okay, so again, we can just put an exclamation point in front of the variable we're checking, which is params, and then params will be equal to default params, and then we return params. Right? And then here we have the or and and statements. The double vertical slash is or, and the double ampersand or the double and symbol is and. Now the thing we need to know about here is that with or statements, only one of them needs to resolve to true for the whole thing to be true. But with the and, both of them have to be true for the whole thing to resolve to true. So for example, if the first statement, like this one right here, the first one just resolves to false, then it's not even going to check the second one, and it's just going to return false. Alright, use or for defaulting. Their construct value or default value returns value if value is not undefined, and default value if value is undefined. Alright. Use or to implement a better default mechanism, and really all we have to do here is return params or default params, because what it explains here on the left. Alright. Here we have the while loop. It just wants us to increment a start value by 1 the number of times specified. So we declare a variable inside the function that will control our loop, set it to 0. We go while that variable is less than times to increment. We're going to go start ++, and then the variable ++. right? And then here we have for loops again. This is pretty much the same idea. For var I is equal to 0, semicolon. I is not equal to times the increment, semicolon, I plus plus. And then inside we have star plus plus. Pretty much the same idea as what we did with the while. And then here we have do while statements, which are used when you want to run a block of code at least once. You want to guarantee that it runs at least once. So we're going to declare another variable again, var I is equal to 0, and then do start plus plus and I plus plus, and then we do while I is not equal to times the increment, and then return start. Alrighty. And then here we're introduced to switch statements. Switch statements are a lot like else if statements. They're pretty much the same idea. So here it says, write a function that uses switch statements on the type of value. If it is a string, return str. If it is a number, return num. Object, return obj. Anything else, return other. So we're going to go switch, parenthesis, type of value. That'll check the type of it. Alright. Then we have case number. Make sure you put a regular colon. Return num, break, which leaves the switch statement. And then we have case string, colon, return str, break. Case object, return obj, break. Default, which means if none of these cases resolve to true, then it's just going to return other. Alright, that concludes the first part of this video. Please go on to the second part.